power doesn't corrupt. Power reveals. We often like to imagine that those in power are different from us, greedier, colder, somehow inherently less moral. But what if they're not? What if the ability to command armies, legislate lives, or sway millions is not a moral test, but a mirror? What if power doesn't create monsters, but merely unmasks them? It's a chilling thought, but not a new one. In fact, it lies at the core of one of the most controversial political philosophies ever written. A philosophy that dared to strip away the illusions of virtue from leadership and reveal what really drives the machinery of power. Enter Niccolò Machiavelli. Welcome to The Unfolding Journey, the channel where we explore the deep and often uncomfortable truths behind history, philosophy, politics, and human behavior. If you've ever wondered what really motivates leaders, or how ideas from centuries ago still shape our modern world, you're in the right place. Let's dive into one of the most enduring and unsettling legacies in political thought, Machiavelli's Realpolitik, then and now. Niccolò Machiavelli was born in 1469 in Florence, Italy, at a time when the city was a swirling cauldron of political intrigue, economic power, and ruthless ambition. Italy was not yet a unified nation, but a patchwork of city-states constantly at war with one another. Florence, Venice, Milan, Naples, and the Papal States all jostled for supremacy, often switching allegiances and betraying treaties faster than you could blink. Machiavelli lived through invasions by France and Spain, the rise and fall of the Medici family, and the brutal execution of the fiery preacher Savonarola. These were not times for idealists. Political survival required cold calculation and swift action. In this environment, Machiavelli served as a diplomat and senior official in the Florentine Republic. He met kings, popes, and mercenaries and saw firsthand the raw mechanics of power. But when the Medici returned to power in 1512, he was exiled. Bitter, disillusioned, and out of favor, Machiavelli turned to writing. It was in this period that he penned his most infamous work, The Prince. Published posthumously in 1532, The Prince shocked readers with its unflinching advice. Forget morality, Machiavelli seemed to say. Rulers must do what is necessary to maintain power and ensure the stability of the state. If lying, manipulation, or even cruelty achieve this, then so be it. In one of the book's most quoted lines, he writes, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." This is Realpolitik in its rawest form. Politics based on practical objectives rather than ideals or ethics. To many, Machiavelli appeared to be endorsing tyranny. But that interpretation may be too simplistic. In truth, Machiavelli wasn't prescribing evil for its own sake. He was observing the world as it was, not as we wished it to be. He believed that a stable state, even under a harsh ruler, was better than chaos. In fact, Machiavelli cared deeply about the survival of a unified Italy. He saw that idealism, when divorced from pragmatism, could lead to disaster. Good intentions, in his view, were meaningless without results. Central to Machiavelli's thinking are two key concepts, Virtù and Fortuna. Virtù doesn't mean virtue in the moral sense. It refers instead to a leader's capacity, courage, cunning, decisiveness, strength, and even ruthlessness when needed. It's the personal skill to shape events and bend fortune to one's will. Fortuna, by contrast, is chance, the unpredictable element of life, luck, the chaos that no one can control. A successful ruler, Machiavelli argued, must possess enough virtù to master, or at least manipulate Fortuna. The man who can adapt to changing circumstances and act boldly in the face of uncertainty is the one who survives. It's a brutal worldview, but also a realistic one, and it still resonates deeply in our own political era. Fast forward 500 years, and Machiavelli's fingerprints are all over modern politics. When we speak of Realpolitik today, we refer to a pragmatic, results-oriented approach to governance and diplomacy. It favors national interest over ideology. It tolerates unpleasant allies and difficult compromises. It's the logic that underpinned Bismarck's unification of Germany, Nixon's opening to China, and countless backroom deals and military interventions since. Even in democratic societies, leaders must often make decisions that clash with public morality in order to maintain order, negotiate peace, or protect national interests. When a leader authorizes drone strikes that result in civilian casualties or supports regimes that suppress dissent in the name of stability, they are echoing Machiavellian reasoning, whether they admit it or not. In some cases, Realpolitik may prevent greater evils. In others, it may justify atrocities under the banner of pragmatism. This tension between moral aspiration and political necessity has never gone away. And it's precisely the dilemma that Machiavelli forces us to confront. Here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. We like to think that democracy is the antidote to Machiavellian politics. That transparency, checks and balances, and the rule of law prevent the abuses of power Machiavelli describes. But in reality, even democracies aren't immune. Elected officials still manipulate narratives, exploit fear, and use the machinery of state to consolidate control. Politicians spin the truth, fund disinformation campaigns, or use patriotic rhetoric to mask ulterior motives. These are not deviations from the system. They are often part of the system. Machiavelli understood that appearances matter. He wrote that a ruler must appear merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and religious, but also be ready to act in the opposite way if necessary. Sound familiar? Modern political campaigns often rely less on policy than on perception. The candidate who wins is rarely the one with the purest ideals. It's the one who plays the game best. So, where does that leave us? Should we abandon all hope for ethical politics? Are we doomed to accept Machiavelli's dark vision of power forever? Not necessarily. What Machiavelli gives us is not a roadmap for corruption, but a toolkit for understanding power. His work strips away the illusions that often cloud our political judgments. He reminds us that leadership is not a fairy tale, that behind every throne lies a tangle of interests, calculations, and compromises. If anything, Machiavelli's Realpolitik should make us more vigilant, not more cynical. It challenges us to hold leaders accountable not just for their words, but for their actions. It forces us to ask, what are we willing to tolerate in the name of security? What lines should never be crossed, even for political survival? Democracy may never be perfect, but it offers something Machiavelli's era could not: the ability for ordinary people to participate, to push back, to demand transparency. Understanding Realpolitik can help us navigate that system more wisely. Machiavelli didn't corrupt politics. He revealed it. The Prince was not a guidebook for evil, but a mirror held up to power, a reflection of how leaders truly behave when stripped of pretense. And though centuries have passed, that mirror still shows us truths we would rather not see. Whether in Renaissance Florence or the corridors of modern governments, the problem of power is the same. How to use it without being used by it. How to lead without losing your soul. How to balance the demands of the real world with the ideals we cherish. And that's what makes Machiavelli not just relevant, but essential. He reminds us that politics is not a morality play. But that doesn't mean we must abandon morality. It means we must fight harder to uphold it, even in the face of harsh realities. So the next time you hear a leader justify a controversial decision for the greater good, or you see rhetoric masking ruthless ambition, remember Machiavelli. And ask yourself, is this virtue, or just virtue in disguise? Thanks for watching this episode of The Unfolding Journey. If you found this exploration of Machiavelli and Realpolitik thought-provoking, insightful, or even a little unsettling, that's exactly the point. Our world is built on ideas, and understanding those ideas is the first step in understanding ourselves. If you want more deep dives into philosophy, history, and the forces that shape our modern lives, don't forget to like this video, share it, and most importantly, subscribe to The Unfolding Journey. There's a lot more to uncover together. Until next time, keep questioning, keep thinking, and never stop exploring.